I am 87 years old. My name is Margaret, and I've spent the last 6 decades watching my closest friends make choices that slowly destroyed them from the inside out. I'm not here to judge them. God knows I've made my own mistakes, but I'm here because someone needs to tell you what happens when you reach the end of your life and realize you've been playing the wrong game all along. I've buried 4 of my best friends in the last 10 years, and I sat with each of them in their final days. You know what none of them talked about? Their careers, their bank accounts, their investment portfolios. Not one of them mentioned the promotions they earned or the insurance policies they sold or the financial institutions they climbed to the top of. They talked about the children they ignored, the marriages they neglected, the moments they missed, and the people they hurt while chasing things that turned out to mean absolutely nothing. Let me tell you about Caroline. She was the first one of us to really make it in the business world. Back in 1975, she got hired as one of the first female executives at a major insurance company in Boston. She was brilliant, ambitious, absolutely unstoppable. She worked 7 zero-hour weeks, traveled constantly for banking conferences and client meetings, and climbed that corporate ladder faster than any woman we knew. By the time she was 45, she was a senior vice president with a corner office, a 6-figure salary, and a pension plan that guaranteed her financial security for life. She had everything the career counselors told us to want. Her husband left her when she was 48, said he was tired of being married to a ghost. Her daughter stopped calling around the same time. Caroline told herself it didn't matter because she was building something important, creating financial independence, proving that women could succeed in finance just like men. Caroline retired at 65 with a 401k worth over $2 million, a paid-off house in the suburbs, and excellent health insurance that covered everything except the one thing that was actually killing her, which was loneliness. She spent the next 15 years living alone in that big house, watching financial news on television, managing her investment portfolio on her computer, and waiting for her daughter to forgive her for missing every important moment of her childhood. The call never came. Caroline died at 80 from a stroke, and her daughter didn't come to the funeral. I was there, me and about a dozen former colleagues from the insurance company who barely remembered her name. The irony was unbearable. She had spent her entire life building financial security, and she died alone, unremembered, unmissed by the people who should have mattered most. Her estate was worth $3.8 million, and it all went to charities because she had no one to leave it to. Then there was Patricia. She took a different path but ended up in the same place. Patricia married young, married rich, and spent 40 years as a doctor's wife, obsessed with maintaining appearances and impressing people who didn't actually care about her. She threw elaborate dinner parties to show off her house. She bought designer clothes to prove she belonged in the country club. She drove luxury cars and took expensive vacations and remodeled her kitchen 3 times to keep up with the neighbors. Her husband was a good man, but she was never satisfied with good enough. She was always comparing, always competing, always terrified that someone might have more than her. She opened multiple credit accounts to finance her lifestyle, maxed out cards to pay for things she didn't need, and spent money they didn't have to impress people who weren't impressed. Her children grew up watching their mother value possessions over presents, and they learned the lesson too well. Patricia's husband died when she was 68, and that's when everything fell apart. She discovered he'd been quietly paying off her debts for decades, liquidating his retirement accounts and taking loans against his life insurance policy to cover her spending. When he died, there was no pension left, no savings, no financial security. The life insurance barely covered the funeral. She had to sell the house she'd remodeled so many times, auction off the designer furniture, liquidate everything to pay creditors. She spent her last 12 years living in a small apartment, alone, estranged from her children who associated her with shame and debt and broken promises. She died at 80, bitter and angry, convinced the world had somehow cheated her, but the truth is she cheated herself. She spent 40 years accumulating things instead of relationships, and in the end she lost both. I visited her a week before she died, and she looked at me with these hollow eyes and said, "I can't even remember why I bought half that stuff, Margaret. I can't remember what I was trying to prove." My friend Dorothy worked in banking for 35 years, and she was good at it, really good. She started as a teller and worked her way up to branch manager, then regional director. She understood money, understood investments, understood how to help people plan for their financial futures. But here's the cruel irony. She was so busy helping other people secure their retirements that she forgot to secure her own relationships. She missed her son's college graduation because she was closing a major commercial lending deal. She missed her daughter's wedding because she was at a banking industry conference in Las Vegas. She missed her grandchildren's births because she was always working, always available to the bank, always putting her career first. She told herself she was providing for her family, that her salary and her benefits were her way of showing love. She believed that money was the same thing as presents, that a paycheck could substitute for a hug. Dorothy retired at 67 with full benefits, a substantial pension from the bank, and a beautiful retirement portfolio she'd built over 3 decades. She was financially set for life, more money than she could possibly spend. She planned to finally have time for her family, to make up for all those missed moments, but her children were polite strangers by then. They called on holidays but kept the conversations brief. Her grandchildren barely knew her. She was just the old lady who sent money in birthday cards but never actually showed up. Dorothy spent her retirement years volunteering at the bank's financial literacy programs, teaching young people about savings accounts and investment strategies because that was the only place she felt useful, the only place where her knowledge mattered. She died at 79 from cancer, and while her funeral was well attended by banking colleagues, her own children sat in the front row like they were attending a stranger's service. I held her hand the night before she died, and she whispered, "I know everything about money, Margaret, but I never learned how to invest in what actually matters." Then there was Susan, who made herself sick chasing a standard of beauty and youth that was always just out of reach. She started getting cosmetic procedures in her 40s, just small things at first, Botox and fillers, nothing too dramatic, but it became an obsession, an addiction. She spent tens of thousands of dollars on plastic surgery, laser treatments, injections, anything that promised to stop time. She maxed out credit cards to finance her procedures, took out personal loans to pay for treatments her insurance wouldn't cover. She was terrified of aging, terrified of becoming invisible, terrified of being seen as old. Her husband begged her to stop, but she couldn't. She'd invested so much money into this version of herself that she felt she couldn't stop now. She looked younger than her age technically, but she looked strange, too tight and frozen, and somehow less human with every procedure. The financial cost exceeded $200,000 over 2 decades, not including the emotional price she paid. Susan's husband left her when she was 62, saying he didn't recognize her anymore, didn't know who she was trying to be. She continued the treatments anyway, spending her divorce settlement on more surgeries, more procedures, convinced that if she just looked young enough, someone would love her again. She died at 73 from complications following a facelift she didn't need. Her face looked decades younger than her age in the casket, but her hands told the truth, gnarled and spotted and old, because you can't Botox your hands. I looked at her, lying there, and thought about all that money she'd spent, all those hours in surgeons' offices, all that pain and recovery, and for what? She'd been beautiful at 40 and beautiful at 60, but she'd never been able to see it. She'd traded her life savings and her marriage for a face that looked strange to everyone who loved her. The saddest part? In all those final years, she had no photos of herself because she refused to be photographed, never satisfied with how she looked, never done improving. She erased herself while trying to preserve herself. And then there's Helen, who's still alive but might as well not be. Helen is 82 now, living in an assisted living facility that costs $8,000 a month, and she's the most miserable person I've ever known. She has plenty of money. Her late husband was a successful financial advisor who left her very well provided for. She has excellent insurance, a comfortable room, professional care, everything she needs materially, but she's angry all the time, complaining constantly, finding fault with everything and everyone. The staff dread seeing her. The other residents avoid her. Her children visit out of obligation, stay for exactly 20 minutes, and leave looking exhausted. Helen has spent her entire life waiting for circumstances to be perfect before she could be happy. She was going to be happy when they paid off the house, then when the kids graduated, then when they retired, then when they moved to Florida, then when her health improved. There was always a condition, always a reason why happiness had to wait for some future moment that never arrived. Now Helen sits in her comfortable room with her financial security intact, waiting to die, and she's still not happy. She's still waiting for something to change, some external circumstance that will finally make everything right. But nothing will ever be right because the problem was never external, it was always internal. She never learned that happiness is a choice you make, not a destination you reach. I visit her once a month, and every single time she spends the entire hour listing complaints. The food is too bland. The staff is incompetent. The other residents are boring. Her children don't visit enough. The facility is too expensive, even though her insurance and savings easily cover it. She has everything she needs and nothing she wants, and she's going to die angry because she never understood that you can't purchase contentment or finance joy. You either choose it or you don't, and she's chosen misery every single day for 8 decades. But let me tell you about the women who got it right, because there were a few, and they're the ones whose funerals were celebrations rather than sad, sparsely attended obligations. My friend Ruth died at 84, and her funeral was standing room only. Over 300 people came. Ruth never made much money. She worked as a nurse, then later as a nursing instructor, living on a modest salary and a small pension. She didn't have investment portfolios or significant savings. She rented her apartment her entire life. She drove used cars and shopped at discount stores. By every financial metric, she was unsuccessful. But Ruth invested in people. She showed up. She called friends when they were struggling. She babysat grandchildren. She volunteered at hospitals and shelters. She sent handwritten notes and remembered birthdays and made people feel seen and valued. When she died, the church was packed with people whose lives she'd touched: former students, patients, friends, neighbors, people who loved her because she'd given them her time and attention and care. The contrast between Ruth's funeral and Caroline's funeral was stark and devastating. Caroline had $3.8 million in the bank and maybe 15 people at her service. Ruth had $8,000 in savings and hundreds of mourners who couldn't imagine the world without her. Which one of them was actually wealthy? Which one of them actually succeeded at life? I can tell you from watching both of them die. Ruth died peacefully, surrounded by people who loved her, grateful for the life she'd lived. Caroline died alone, full of regret, wishing she could trade every dollar for one more chance to do things differently. Money can buy you many things, but it cannot buy you a meaningful funeral. It cannot buy you people who genuinely grieve your absence. Those things can only be earned through years of showing up, being present, and investing your time in relationships rather than portfolios. The funeral home was the same. The caskets cost about the same, but the difference between those two services told you everything you need to know about what actually matters in this life. So here's what I need you to understand, what I'm begging you to hear before you make the same mistakes my friends made. Your career will not hold your hand when you're dying. Your bank account will not comfort you in your loneliness. Your insurance policies will not remember your birthday. Your investment portfolio will not visit you in the nursing home. The designer handbag you bought to impress people at a party will not care about you when you're scared at 3 a.m. The promotion you sacrificed your family for will not give you meaning in your final years. The cosmetic procedures you bankrupted yourself for will not make you feel loved. The beautiful house you stressed over will not ease your regrets. None of it will love you back. None of it will matter when you're standing at the edge like I am, looking back over 8 decades and evaluating what was real and what was illusion. I watched Caroline die wealthy and alone, choosing her career in insurance over her daughter, and then spending 15 years wishing she could undo that choice. I watched Patricia die bitter and broke, realizing too late that the stuff she'd accumulated meant nothing compared to the relationships she'd destroyed acquiring it. I watched Dorothy die with a perfect pension and estranged children, finally understanding that you can't deposit love in a bank account and withdraw it later when it's convenient. I watched Susan die with a young face and an old soul, having spent her entire life savings trying to stop time instead of learning to embrace it. And I watch Helen slowly dying, comfortable and miserable, still waiting for happiness to arrive from some external source, still believing that if circumstances just change, then she'll finally be content. None of them listened when I tried to tell them. They all thought they had time. They all thought they were making smart choices. They all believed the lies that our culture tells us about what matters. Here's my challenge to you, and I'm giving you 3 specific things to do, not someday, but this week. Number 1, call someone you've been too busy for. Not a text, not an email, an actual phone call where you use your voice and listen to theirs. Maybe it's your mother, your old friend, your sister, your college roommate you keep meaning to catch up with. Call them. Ask how they really are. Listen to the answer. Don't multitask during the conversation. Don't check your phone. Just be there, fully present, for 20 minutes. That's all it takes, 20 minutes of genuine attention and presence. Caroline would have given her entire $3.8 million fortune for 20 minutes of genuine connection with her daughter. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let your career or your busy schedule or your financial planning become the excuse for failing to connect with people who love you. The phone call is free. The regret of not making it costs everything. Number 2, look at your bank statement and your calendar from last month. Where did your money go? Where did your time go? Because those two things tell the truth about what you actually value, regardless of what you say you value. If you spent $500 on clothes but $0 on experiences with people you love, that tells a story. If you spent 40 hours at the office but 2 hours with your children, that tells a story. If you spent money on a financial advisor but didn't spend time with aging parents, that tells a story. The numbers don't lie. Patricia spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on furniture and cars and remodels and exactly $0 on therapy or marriage counseling or family experiences. When I asked her why, she said she never thought about it that way. But that's exactly the point. We need to think about it that way. We need to look at where our resources are going and ask ourselves honestly, is this building the life I actually want or the life I think I'm supposed to want? Number 3, forgive someone right now, today. Someone who hurt you, someone who disappointed you, someone you've been holding a grudge against for years. Forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because carrying anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Because life is too short to waste years of it nurturing grievances and protecting wounds and rehearsing old arguments. Helen has held grudges for 60 years, and they've made her absolutely miserable. She keeps a mental ledger of every wrong ever done to her, every slight, every disappointment, and she reviews it constantly. It's eating her alive. She's dying slowly, killed by her own bitterness, surrounded by money and insurance and security, but completely alone because she never learned to let go. Don't be Helen. Let it go. Forgive. Move on. Use the time you have left for love, not litigation. For connection, not complaints. For building, not blaming. I'm 87 years old and I don't have much time left, but you do. You still have chances I don't have anymore. You can still call your mother and tell her you love her. You can still show up for your children's events instead of working late. You can still choose people over promotions, presence over productivity, relationships over retirement accounts. You can still look in the mirror and accept yourself instead of spending a fortune trying to look like someone else. You can still be happy right now instead of waiting for circumstances to change. You can still invest your time and attention and energy into things that will actually matter when you're where I am, looking back over a lifetime and asking yourself what was real. I've watched my friends die with regrets, and I've watched my friends die with peace. The difference wasn't money. It wasn't success. It wasn't beauty or status or career achievement. The difference was always the same thing. The ones who died peaceful were the ones who loved people more than they loved things. Don't wait until you're 87 to figure this out. Don't wait until your friends are dead to understand what mattered. Don't spend 40 years climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong building. The banking industry will replace you. The insurance company will forget you. The financial institution will merge and reorganize, and your name will disappear from the records. But the people who love you will remember whether you showed up. Your children will remember whether you were present. Your friends will remember whether you made time for them. Those memories, those relationships, those moments of genuine connection, that's the only wealth that survives death. That's the only investment that pays dividends forever. Caroline had millions in her portfolio and no one at her funeral. Ruth had thousands in savings and hundreds of mourners. Which one do you want to be? The choice is yours, but you have to make it now. You have to make it today, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed and the clock is ticking for all of us.